وعلى الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمساعدنا بأبي عبد الله حسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. It's a great honor to be amongst you once again. Thank you for having me. I'm indebted to you, indebted to God, and indebted to our beloved Imam Hussain, for whose sake we congregate once again. Now, when we look at the story of Imam Hussain and his resilience and the way he gave himself to the tribulations on that day and his response to the travails and the hardships that befell him, it immediately intrigues us, and we are filled with this sense of a greater, deeper purpose. It resonates deep within us that there is something so profound, and there has to be. And this is reflected in Imam Hussein's way in which he was reaching out to God in the midst of that unbearable difficulties that he was faced with. And then that causes us to reevaluate our understanding of life and world. And we ask ourselves, what is going on? Is there much more to it than what I have understood? Now that question pulls away at us deep within our souls. We know for a fact that this life, the way we have understood it, does not make sense. And as we progress technologically and scientifically, we are beginning to see that this world is not what it seems. Our natures are not what we understand them to be. Religious responses are not satisfying. We somehow provide our minds with responses that keep us going. But deep within ourselves, there is that thing that have I understood? Does any of it make sense? And the answer is actually no, it doesn't make sense. But when we look at somebody like Imam Hussain, we feel he actually understood what was going on. There is something much deeper than what we are understanding of life. Now look at the state of our knowledge. It's so deficient. We don't really have knowledge. And the Quran says, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنْ عِلْمٍ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. The knowledge that you have been given is but a little. You have very little knowledge to go on. The Quran describes this world as an illusory world. It's not a real world, the Quran says. It's the world of illusion. And today, in our scientific explorations, we are beginning to understand that what we see is not necessarily there. Our minds are interpreting things in a way that keeps us going. We are all in our individualistic world. Neither can I show you what I see, neither can I see what you are seeing. We are hearing things, we are seeing things, we are smelling things that are not really there. Now we know there are odors that don't exist. Until we actually breathe in, then we smell something that is smelling, that gives a sensation of smell. But it is not really there in and of itself. But it is there in our minds because it is there to protect us, that sensation of smell. So we really don't know what is going on. There is a yearning within us to explore. We are reaching out to the skies. We are diving deep into the oceans. We are discovering, we are uncovering. We are making great strides, but still within us, there is that yearning. What is it all about? There is something going on. We know this at the back of our minds. We know this deep within our souls. We know something is wrong. We know it's not making sense. There is that deep yearning. The fundamental question, who am I? Why am I? Why should I be here in the first place? Why should I be having this experience of life? Why should I be having these opportunities? Why should there be these trials? when we turn to religion, religion says you have been created to worship God. And if you worship God properly, God will give you paradise. And this life is a big bestowal. But when we analyze this statement of religion, it makes God very oppressive. It makes God unjust. God just created us and placed us on this earth without asking us and says this is an opportunity. By the way, I need to just recap from last year because I'm going to build on last year's talks. He just creates us and places us on this earth and says it's an opportunity. What type of an opportunity is this? Have you seen our human constitution, how frail we are? Look at us, the way we are. Look at the way we kill each other. Look at the way we are oppressive. And the Quran says, خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. Insan has been created in weakness. Haluha, manuha, jazuha. Anxiety, jazuha, in despairing state. Manuha, always withholding. This is the constitution of insan, psychological constitution. Distrust, greed, rage. Why would a merciful God create such a faulty creature, put them on this earth, give them these trials, and then give them reward if they pass or hell if they fail? That God doesn't make sense altogether. If we were to worship God, then obviously our inner being says God has to be the kindness, the omnipotent, the omniscient, the kindest of all kind. Can you imagine a being as lofty as God creating something as faulty as humanity and then expecting us to behave righteously? That doesn't make sense to anyone. A kind mother would not want to see her children burn in hell. The parent of all parents, whose single ray of light creates the mother, is not as merciful as his own creation. Can that make sense to anyone? Look at how the problem is compounded. Does God know everything before it happens? Does he? So before he created everything, he knew these people are going to go to hell. Even if a single person goes to hell, it shows that God does not exist, not the sort of God that we are worshiping. Even if a single person out of 8 billion people goes to hell, it undermines God altogether, because an all-knowing God whose knowledge cannot be defined, who knows they are going to go to hell and still creates them, and then has the audacity of saying that this is a bestowal, is a lying God. You see, we need to awaken. There is something going on. Now, I don't know what's going on. And my audience will be as confused as I am by the time I finish with you. And then you can become Maulanas and confuse others. But a state of confusion is better than this naive state of knowledge. Because a state of confusion will lead us into seeking clarity. There is something known as a communication of God, known as the Quran. Right? You listen to Maulana, and I listen to myself, and none of us refer to the Quran. I think maybe it's time we pick up that book and ask God, what is going on here? We don't understand this. On the one hand, God is needless. On the other hand, He has created us to worship Him. How does that make sense to anybody but a Maulana? Only a Maulana can make sense of such contradictions. You see, so the sort of thing that we are within doesn't make any sense, and that is the reason why we are wasting away. We are not making full use of life. The Quran puts this life as a huge bestowal. A lot hinges on this life. Now, if you can imagine, according to the Quranic verses, eternal damnation or eternal bliss contingent upon a few years of this life. Now, obviously, I gave this example a few weeks ago in one of the khutbahs, and the person who inspired the example is here within the audience. I was at his house in Nairobi, and there were these little insects flying everywhere. So he said, do you know the story behind these little flies? I said, no. He said, well, they actually take birth as flies within the rainy season. I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. He said, but do you know how long they live? And I said, no. He said, mere 4 hours. Their lives are 4 hours. I looked at those flying little insects and I said, just behave for 4 hours. Your life is only 4 hours. You're going to die after that. Just behave for 4 hours and you'll go. You're fine after that. Don't do anything wrong. Then I thought, wait a minute. God says, a day of mine is 1,000 years of your reckoning. And the ruh and the angels are sent to God in a day that is 50,000 years. And I said to myself, but my life, the entirety of it is but an hour. The Quran recalls the conversations of the children of Adam on the day of Qiyamah when they are asked, how long did you live? An hour of the day will come the response. And I said, instead of reminding those insects, I better start reminding myself that your life is only an hour. Behave, get it over with, get out of this place. This is how small your life is. And so much hinges on this 1 hour. What is actually going on? You see, if we were to be critical, and if we were to open our minds, we will see that, you know what? Things don't make sense here. There needs to be a deeper inquiry. Now that we have put our ship on stormy waters, I used to always feel I was on the shores of safety until my mind opened and I realized I'm in the middle of a stormy ocean. I can't see the shores of safety anymore, yes? So now we've put our ship in the middle of the ocean. That's it, we'll go to sail. I don't know where we're going to sail to, but we'll try and make some sense of it. Now, if you look at the Quran says they forgot Allah and Allah made them forget themselves. So what's going on here? They forgot Allah and Allah made them forget themselves. To be honest with you, none of us know who we are. We are assuming so much. I am assuming I am this body with this DNA. I am a male, I am a Muslim, I am a Shia. The Shias don't think I'm one of them, but I am a Shia, I am a Khoja. They can't deny I'm a Khoja. That comes with the DNA. The thing is, am I any of these things? Am I any of these things? Or are these falsities and layers of falsities that have surrounded me? And I've totally become lost to my own self. Now, you know, we have this misinterpretation of the prophetic hadith that كل مولود يولد على فطرة Islam. Every child takes birth on the fitrah of Islam. So we say every child is sinless. You see, it's a very naive interpretation that we have, that every child is sinless, because you don't understand the meaning of sin. To be honest with you, I've come to this stage that I know now none of us understand what each other are saying, and I've come to a stage where I don't even understand what I'm saying anymore. But every child takes birth with huge baggage. Have you ever noticed that? Whatever the parents have done, whatever their parents have done, whatever their parents have done, and ultimately whatever humanity has done, is all transferred into that innocent little baby. It's born on the fitrah of Islam in the sense that it doesn't carry anybody's sins, but it carries all the mental aptitudes, the deficiencies, the strengths of whatever lineage it has come from. You see, when we tell people you're this and you're that and you need to improve yourself, it's wrong. That's not the way and that's not the approach. Every child comes messed up in this world. Salawat. Do you know how insightful the Blessed Prophet was? Yeah? You know, I curse the ISIS and I curse the killers of babies. The Blessed Prophet saw two layers of identity. He saw the outer. He said, this is the outer. And there is an inner. The inner is sinless. The outer is a mess. He looked at the inside being there. And that's the attitude we need to have towards ourselves. That, you know what? Self-loathing, self-hating, self-cursing, putting ourselves down, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Before I advance into this post, we need to have confidence in God. Look, is He the creator of all that we see and what we don't see? Yeah? Is He the creator of all of that? Is He the most merciful? Is He kinder than the kindest parent? Do you think when you go to your mothers and plead with your mothers that your mothers will not forgive you, do you have that confidence in your mother? You don't have confidence in the mother of all mothers and father of all fathers? The default position here should be, Allah, I am a mess, but I have you. I have you. Now I'm going to start this inquiry. You see, most of the time, we are petrified of asking questions. We are afraid, aren't we? We are so afraid. We are petrified. But Allah, if you are my friend, and you have ignited this inquiry within my soul, and inevitably, what do I want? I want to find myself and I want to find you. Shall you burn one who wants to awaken to you? Oh Allah, I cannot presume that of you. You have created a little ant and you look after a little ant. Shall you take joy in burning me? Nay, this is not you, O God. If you burn me, as Ali says, I will go. I will say to the flame, consume me, consume me. For every portion of me burns in the love of my Creator. O Lord, I give myself to that extent to you. And I know you will honor me when I conduct this inquiry. With that spirit, we are conducting this inquiry, trying to see what is happening, what is going on, fearlessly with confidence in God. Fearlessly in confidence, with confidence in God. O Lord, says Imam Ali, if you chastise me due to my sins, I will reach out to you due to your mercy. If you hold me accountable due to my weaknesses, I will plead to you in terms of your parental love. Have that confidence with God. If we can open up, if we can come into the right world, if we can find some answers, then at least we can make this life a meaningful life. Now, on that note then, Sumaya must have forwarded you the verses that I'm going to be dealing with today and in the days that will come. We do need to look at these verses and reflect upon them in the lonely hours of the night and think about what is going on. Now think about these verses and ask yourselves, can this actually make sense with the way we look at the world? Or is there something else going on? Yeah? Our naive appreciation of the world is God has created us. If we worship Him, He will give us paradise. If we disobey Him, He will give us hell. That's our naive worldview, isn't it? That's the worldview of Abrahamic faiths. That's also the worldview of other monotheistic faiths that are beyond Abrahamic, although I consider them Abrahamic. Now, if that is true, then think of these verses. Look at the verses of Surah Qiyamah. This theme has come in two verses. Surah Qamar, Surah 54, verses 6 to 8. For those of you who want to open it on your iPhones. The day in which the caller will call towards a thing unbearable. Their eyes will be filled with terror. Those who have been resurrected. يَخْرُجُونَ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ They will come out of their graves like scattered moths. مُهْطَعِينَ إِلَى الدَّاعِ Rushing towards the caller. يَقُولُ الْكَافِرُ هَذَا يَوْمٌ عَسِرٌ The disbeliever will say, this is a difficult day. Now the Quran depicts this scene that people will be thrown out of their graves like moths. They will be rushing. Their bodies will be dragged. They won't be able to stop their bodies. Their bodies will be going towards a direction, looking towards a direction, filled with terror, and they won't be able to stop themselves. What a dreadful description. Look at another one. Surah Hajj 22, verses 2 and 3. O people, fear your Lord, for the tremor of the hour is a mighty thing. The day in which they see, every wet nursing mother will be confused, And she will forget the baby that she is wet nursing. وَتَضَعُ كُلُّ ذَاتِ حَمْلٍ حَمْلَهَا. And every pregnant woman will miscarry her child. وَتَرَى النَّاسَ سُكَارَى وَمَا هُمْ بِسُكَارَى. You will see people and they will appear drunkard, but they will not be drunkard. وَلَكِنَّ عَذَابَ اللَّهِ شَدِيدٌ. But the chastisement of God will be severe indeed. Does that make sense? To put somebody through that? The day in which they see it, children will turn into old men. That is the day of Qiyamah. Now look at these sets of verses. وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. Surah Isra, verse 15. No one will bear the burdens of another soul. There is something going on. There is something going on. Each person is carrying their own burden. فَإِذَا نُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَلَا أَنْسَابَ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَلَا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. And when the trumpet is blown, all familial ties will break immediately. And they will not be able to ask each other. I'm not giving the references because it's there, it must have been sent to you. الْأَخِلَّاءُ يَوْمَئِذٍ بَعْضُهُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌّ إِلَّا الْمُتَّقِينَ. Friends will become enemies of each other on that day. And then there is another set of verses in Surah Sajda, that on that day, O Muhammad, if only you could see the guilty when they are awoken, they will say, O Lord, now we see, now we hear, send us back so that when we do righteous deeds. In another verse it says, if we send you back, you will do the same thing again. As if you've already made that claim and you've lied. Doesn't this suggest that something is going on other than what we have understood? There is a different story to the one that we are accustomed to hearing and believing with our naivities. And there are a series of verses that say, had God not given them a respite, we would have destroyed them all just now due to the crimes that they are committing. وَلَكِنْ أَجَلًا مُسَمَّى. But they have been spared to a prescribed time. Had Allah wanted to hold them accountable due to what they are doing, the punishment would be so severe that there will be no crawling creature remaining on the face of the earth. But God has given them a respite. In the verse that I stated before, it says, they will say, send us back and we'll do righteous deeds. And the verse goes on, وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَأَتَيْنَا كُلَّ نَفْسٍ هُدَاهَا. Had we wanted, we would have given every soul its guidance. Isn't that telling? And we wanted, we would have given every soul its guidance. However, I've already passed a decree that I will fill the hell with all the criminals. Doesn't that say something else is going on? The story is not as what we have understood it to be. Now, what is the story? The story, according to the Quran, appears to be that this is not the commencement of our existence. This is a place where we have come to after existing already. We don't start life from here. Somewhere else begins our story, and this is a consequence of that another thing that was there. We get that much from the Quran. Now look at this beautiful sequence in the Quran, that death comes before life. And this is consistently carried everywhere within the Quran. يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَمُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ. He brings out the living from the dead, and he brings out the dead from the living. Death always comes first. In Surah Baqarah, they are being challenged, the Medinan community, rationally. كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون. How can you disbelieve in God when you were dead? He brought you to life. Then He will kill you. Then He will bring you to life again. And then you will be raised to Him. The question here is that what you mean? How do you disbelieve in God when you were dead? If I was dead, I didn't know anything. But the verse presumes that you were dead. You knew that. And then He brought you to life in this state. You were, but you are in death. Another verse. Oh Lord, you have killed us twice. You have given us life twice. Is there any way for us to escape now? So all these verses seem to be suggesting that there was death and there is life. Then there will be death, then there will be life. Now when we come into a second death, after we go from here, do we become non-existent? Or do we just fall asleep? What happens after a second death? Once we die in this world, what happens? We believe, right? Our bodies decay, but we are still there. That is the very case in the first death. There was something that went on. Whatever that was finished, we were suspended. Then we were brought back into this life. That life that we had before this determines what we have now inherited in this life. So this baggage that we bring with us in this life is a direct result of a previous life. Otherwise, imagine how unjust God would become. He makes one person, takes birth in the household of his prophet. He makes another person, takes birth in the household of Bani Umayyah. Which one of these two children has a greater chance of being saintly or of being a villain? Which one? It's obvious, isn't it? If he makes a child take birth in poverty, in a household of rebels, in a household of gangsters, isn't there a greater possibility that that child will turn out to be the same as the parents who are indoctrinating the child? Look at the people of Lut, when they were destroyed by the stones that fell on them. Not only men were destroyed, women were destroyed, and their children were destroyed, weren't they? Why were their children destroyed? Nabi Nuh says in the Quran, O Lord, Surah Nuh, if you spare any of them, they will not give birth illa fajiran wa kuffara, save to sinners and disbelievers. Destroy them all now. So when we take birth in a household, Islamic obviously teachings also teach us that when the child is in the womb of the mother should be calm. She should listen to the Quran. She should live she should be in a very wholesome state of mind, because that impacts the child. Now, if the mother is in a turbulent state, that will then create this mental outlook and the formative sort of neurons and whatever that goes on in the child's head from that point. Now, if God brings out a child like that and then punishes the child, then God is not just, is he? So in order for God to remain just, the problems that we are having here have to be attributed to other than God. And other than God is us. We have to be directly responsible for our circumstances on earth. So you see, it's no good for us to say, why me? Look at the blessed Imam Hussain. Do we ever find in his ordeals, he said, oh Allah, why me? Has he ever said that in the story of Ashura? Has the blessed Prophet, his grandfather, ever said that? Has Imam Ali ever uttered those words? Imam Hussain says, in his last sort of moments, you are the one I rely upon in every state. There is none worthy of worship other than you. What sort of a soul is this? Akbar falls. Imam Hussain says, oh child, what makes this unbearable seem bearable is that God accompanies me in this ordeal. And he witnesses all of this. And then he turns to Akbar and says, blessings, praise be to God, who has decided to take you away at such a tender age and spare you the trials of life. Lesser than Hussain will say, oh Allah, why him? What sin did he commit? And that is the response Hussain ibn Ali is giving. Look at where Hussain is. Look at what his soul is understanding. There is something else going on altogether. Now the Quranic verses, you will find this scattered everywhere. You can refer to last year's talk. فَذُوقُوا بِمَا نَسِيتُمْ لِقَاءَ يَوْمِكُمْ هَذَا إِنَّا نَسِينَاكُمْ. Then taste the fire due to you forgetting the meeting on this day. We have forgotten it. Forget what? I don't know what meeting it's talking about. Can you see that? But the Quran is saying you've forgotten the meeting. These folks will be going after, trying to recollect what we have forgotten and why we have forgotten. Why is there this defacement of memory? Why don't we remember anything? We know something is going on, but we can't remember. When it comes to the story of who are we, the Quran gives a very different picture. It says you have been created from one soul. I refer to last year's lectures and the ayats that Sumaya has sent to you. You have been created from one soul. And then from that soul, the verse is, then we created its spouse. So we have all been created from one soul. Before we became bodies, we are just pure souls. We are not man, we are not woman, we are not young, we are not old, we are not poor, we are not rich, we are not sick, we are not healthy. We are none of these things. These are the states of our body and our bodies. That's what the Quran is hinting at. And then the Quran hints at, we have created you from earth, we will return you to earth, and we will take you out from earth. But your creation is from earth, not you. You are something else altogether. It's like an alien waking up in a body, and then leaving the body, and then being open in the body again. There is something going on. Now, what is our default position? So you see, our naive assumption is that we are sinless creatures. We are sinless in the sense that in this world, our deeds are recorded in terms of what we do in this world. But in terms of all the aptitudes we bring with us, all the defects that we bring with us, all the faults we bring with us, we are not starting off as clean slates. Think about it. Have you ever thought a psychopath does not have the same areas of the brain functioning as a person who is not a psychopath? When we do MRI scans of psychopaths, we see that there are certain areas that don't light up because there's not. I know the medics here will correct me at some point. Correct me now, because otherwise I'll apologize tomorrow. Now, psychopathic person does not feel the same level of empathy. Does not feel the same level of sympathy. Does not suffer at the pains of others. Now, I'm a Maulana. I have to remind that to you again. If I were to hurt somebody's feelings, provided I'm not a psychopath, do I bear the same responsibility as a psychopath who doesn't understand empathy? Or is there a distinction between the level of responsibility? That the psychopath can be reckoned as a child who doesn't know what they're doing. And therefore there is diminished responsibility. Now if we were to work on that equation, then God can't punish anybody. God can't punish anybody because we'll say, God, He just doesn't have the capacity to feel pain that He's causing. How can you say you'll punish Him? So Yazid, Shimmer, holy, forgive me for offending you if I'm offending you. Yes, just forgive me. I just need to get it across. Iblis felt jealousy. Think about it. Don't look at women when you talk about jealousy. Think about it. Yeah? Don't start hating me, yeah? It's just that I have to ignite the Iblis in everybody here. Iblis feels jealousy. Do you know what jealousy feels like? Ask me, I'm a Maulana. Jealousy can drive people to most irrational things. How can you blame Iblis? Forgive me for saying this. How can you blame Iblis? He is the favored one of God, right? He is the closest one. When you create somebody else now, bow down to them. Obviously you feel offended. You have pride in you. I'm the closest one to you. Of course, God is saying something else. If you're the closest one to me, then give yourself over to me and claim your closeness. But Iblis is in a childlike state. He doesn't understand such sophisticated propositions. Yes? He's in a childlike state. Would a parent do that to his own child? There's something else going on. But now Iblis is fault-free. Think about it. Iblis is fault-free. He's suffering from pride and jealousy. You can't do anything to a person who's suffering from jealousy and pride. And where did this jealousy and pride come from? Well, from the way his constitution has been built. Who's built his constitution? Well, the Creator himself. So why are you burning Iblis now? Can you see that? If we were to take everything as a clean slate starting from this world, then nobody would be worthy of punishment. God will become the oppressive one. Can you see that? We are coming to this world with baggage, with mess in our heads. Yeah? We're all messed up people. Now, where did this mess come from? If it has come by the divine designer, then who is to be blamed? Us or our Creator? Our Creator, right? God, you created me messed up. And now you're punishing me. That shows you're messed up. Thank you. Can you see that? For you to be perfect and beautiful and kind and all forgiving, you can't instill this force within me. So this force has to come from somewhere else. If I am going to be responsible for my own deeds and nobody bears my responsibility, the only one who is responsible for my messed up situation is me. Now, I don't know how I'm responsible for my own messed up situation, but at least the Quran is hinting. Quran is hinting that there was a life before this. You have created some mess there, and now you are here, and maybe this is a second chance and a big bestowal for you. The Prophet said, the life of this world is a prison for the believer. After that is a release for the believer. Now, if you don't understand what that means, come and live with us in England. Summer months are all grey. It's always raining. If you don't understand that dunya is a prison, come and stay with me and you'll understand how it's a prison. So now you see these verses in Surah, in the Quran. In Surah Ghafir, this default position is not one of sinlessness. It's sinlessness in the sense that our books of deeds start afresh at this phase of life. But it's not sinless in terms of our aptitude and potentials. Now, in Surah Ghafir, Surah 40, verse 7 to 9, look at this verse. And those beings that carry the throne, and those being around those who carry the throne, which are, we assume, to be angels. They are doing the hamd of their Lord, and they have faith in their Lord. And see what it says after that. وَيَسْتَغْفِرُونَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. And they are constantly doing istighfar for the people who have got faith. رَبَّنَا وَسِعْتَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ رَحْمَةً وَعِلْمًا. O our Lord, you have knowledge of all things, and you encompass all things with mercy. فَاغْفِرْ لِلَّذِينَ تَابُوا. Forgive the people who have done tawbah, who want to return to you. وَاتَّبِعُوا سَبِيلِكَ وَقِهِمْ عَذَابَ الْجَحِيمِ. And who are trying to follow your path and spare them the adab of hell. This verse and another verse like it gesture that they are doing tawbah to come back to you. So that means they have done something previously. They have done something previously and now they are trying to make their way to you. Can you imagine the beings that are carrying the throne of God? And those around them are doing istighfar for the people who believe. In another verse, they are doing istighfar for those on earth, which is this. In Surah Shura, Surah 42, verse number 5. The heaven is about to rent asunder beyond, on top of their, from on top. And the malaika are doing tasbih of their Lord and doing istighfar for those on earth. Indeed, Allah is the forgiver, the most merciful. So the angelic realm are seeking forgiveness for the people on earth. That in itself is indicative of the fact that our default position was something else. It is not that sinlessness that we presume it is. It is not this naive existence that we started from. Actually, and think about this, and don't be convinced by it, but go and research it yourself, and look at these verses, that we are not what we think we are. We are possibly people who are carrying a lot of burdens on our shoulders, and we have been given this opportunity of life to relieve ourselves of whatever we have committed and to make our way back to where we are supposed to be. Now, if you look at the story of Adam, let's say Surah Taha 20, verse 120. Now, or Surah Araf. Iblis says to them, Adam, shall I lead you to the tree of ever-living life and a kingdom that will never perish? Now Adam fell for it. Adam fell for it. Now tell me, why would Adam fall for it? He wanted a life that would never end. He wanted a kingdom that doesn't cease to be. Why did he entertain this greed inside him? As a result, we are all here, right? But now, if we are here because of the mistake that Adam made, then that makes God unjust. Can you see that? If we say Adam made a mistake, and as a result we are suffering, then God is most unjust. لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى. No soul shall bear the burden of another soul. But we are bearing the burden of Adam. Can you see that? There is something within us. There is some fault within us. Even today, look at us. How we crave for life. How we crave for authority and power and a dominion that's not ending. Don't we? It is innate within us. There is something there. We need to come to terms with what is going on inside us. Anyway, Adam consumes the fruit. It is not Adam. It seems all of us are doing this. Adam says, after that, رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا, Surah Araf, O Lord, we have darkened our souls. It's very telling, that verse. We have darkened our souls. If you don't forgive us, we will be of the losers. Something has happened. We have done something that needs to be understood. Now in two verses, as we go advanced, two verses I just want to cite right now. In Surah Yasin, the Quran says, أَلَمْ أَعْهَدْ إِلَيْكُمْ يَا بَنِي آدَمْ أَنْ لَا تَعْبُدُوا الشَّيْطَانِ. O children of Adam, did I not tell you not to worship Shaitan? إِنَّهُ عَدُوٌ مُبِينٌ. He is an apparent enemy of yours. Or do not give service to Shaitan. Now, I don't remember any of that, do you? We don't, do we? Isn't this supposed to intrigue us? Incite us with inquiry? In Surah Ibrahim, and when the matter is settled, Shaitan will say to them, God promised you, and he was true to his promise. I promised you, but I faltered. I'm not going to shout at you. Don't shout at me to help you. We will all burn in here. Then Shaitan says, and I deny the way you worshipped me previously. Things have happened. We have no recollection of it. But something has gone on, and we need to awaken to that in order to get a fix on life, a better fix on life than the naive one that we have, and we don't waste our time in the way that we are wasting it right now by listening to a talk that doesn't make sense anyway. Now, if you look at the Quran, it's talking about return to God, and that return is of two types. One is, يَا أَيُّهَا الْإِنسَانُ إِنَّكَ كَادِحٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ كَدْحًا فَمُلَاقِيهِ. O insan, you are laboring towards your Lord in a way that you will meet with your Lord whether you like it or not. You are going to meet with your God. You are on a one-way track. It's a unilateral direction. You're just going there to your God. Not to say that the spirit has ever left God, but that's something we need to understand later on in these talks. And another verse says, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ. O human beings, have you assumed that we have created you without a purpose? And that you will not be returned to us? Look at this verse. There is a reason for your creation. You will be returned to us. And at that point you will cry out, now we see, now we hear, send us back. Now these verses are supposed to intrigue us. They're supposed to awaken us very deeply from within. They're supposed to incite panic within us that, look, time is running out. What am I doing? The very first thing we need to do is that, listen, I need to find a safety net. And that safety net is only my God. We can say to God, I understand. I'm responsible for the mess that is here in this world, and my humanity is responsible, as we will see later on. God does not see human beings in isolation of each other. He sees one human community, as we will discuss later on. It's one story. Yes, Adam ate the fruit, you all came here, you're all one here, you're all going to go back as one. And beyond paradise, there is union, beyond paradise. Paradise is also an illusion, which we might not discuss. But Adam says that we have darkened our souls. On the day of Qiyamah, Surah Baqarah and elsewhere, the verse says, Allah will not look at them. He will not speak with them, and He will not cleanse them. لا يكلمهم الله ولا ينظر إليهم ولا يزكيهم. He will not look at them, He will not talk with them, He will not purify them. Something is going on here. Now, Surah Hadid, and I think some other surah says, Hadid and Tahrim. Hadid says, on the day of Qiyamah, you will see the believers. Their light will be racing ahead of them, from their faces and from their hands. In Surah Tahrim, it will say, it says that they will say to Allah, Atmim lana nurana. O Lord, complete our light for us. What is going on? In Ayatul Kursi, the verse after Ayatul Kursi, يُخْرِجُهُم مِّنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ Allah وَلِيُّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا يُخْرِجُهُم مِّنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ Allah is the wali, the saintly friend and the author of those who believe. He purges them from darkness and brings them into light. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَوْلِيَاءُهُمُ الطَّاغُوتُ, and those who disbelieve, their companions are the evildoers who purge them from light and take them into darkness. Think about it. Analyze this verse. What is darkness? If you look at the Quran, darkness is alienation from our truth. Alienation from God. God in the Quran is designated as Allah, Nurus Samawati wal Ard. Allah is the absolute light of the heavens and the earth. Darkness is a state of alienation, forgetfulness of what we are, our true self, forgetfulness of God. Darkness is the state in which we are immersed right now. I am. It is my right. I want to do this. I understood at a later date in my own journey that my want to spread the word of God is the biggest darkness, because I want to spread the name of my God. Because my religion is the best. You see that? Is the biggest veil of darkness upon my chest. I want to, it's my God that I worship, that I created in my own image, and I'm just spreading my own self. And that's the fact of it. Allah is nothing but light. I'm in a state of darkness. Tending towards God relieves me of me. What does that mean? It relieves me of this tendency that Adam had to be ever living, to have a dominion that is unending. Adam gestures to what all of us are gesturing, claiming a state of Godhead for ourselves. That is the reason why the minimum pass mark here is to say La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah. Otherwise God is not that insecure to say there is no God but me, and then you come to paradise. There is something deep going on. There is something very, very deep going on. We have done things. Look at the Quran. فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ كلهم إلا إبليس أبى واستكبر وكان من الكافرين, except for Iblis. Abba, he refused. واستكبر, he behaved with pride. وكان من الكافرين, and he was amongst those who are adamantly opposed. So that means there are many others other than Iblis as well who have done that. We will go into that thing afterwards. Now, our return to Allah is in a very different way. The body will return to God. The minds will return to God. But even at that return, God is saying He will not look at them. He will not purify them. He will not talk with them. Now, on the one hand, you get this description in the Quran that they will be asked, did you do this, did you do that? They say no. So they'll bring the books. And when the books will be brought, the books will be giving account of every small deed. In Surah Kahf, insan will cry out, مَا لِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ لَا يُغَادِرُ مِنْ صَغِيرَةٍ وَلَا كَبِيرَةٍ إِلَّا أَحْصَاهَا. There is no small or great deed, but that it's recorded here. Now others will have the audacity and say, God, it was your scribes after all. Obviously, what do you expect them to do but to write in your favor? Then the Quran says, we will stamp their mouths. We will put a stamp and seal on their mouths. And we will say to their skin, now bear witness as to what they have done. And their skin, hands and feet and limbs will speak. They will say to their skin, why are you bearing witness against us? The skin will reply, God who gives speech to all things has given us speech. We can't resist His command. So you have that group of people on the day of Qiyamah, and you have Isa. Isa, did you say this? Isa said, Lord, you know what is in my soul. Why do you ask me? You know that enlightened is Isa. And on the other hand, there's a person who says even the scribes are like. So there's a return, but then there is a return. The real return is the return of the inner being. The beautiful return that Hussain Salamullah shows us. The inner being that is able to give it all away, surrender to God wholesomely, and regain its point of union with God. So look at this verse. And when difficulties befall them, Allah says, we will test you with fear, with anxiety, with loss of property, with death. But give glad tidings to the people who, when difficulties befall them, they say, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We are for Allah, and to Him we are returning. We are not for this authority, we are not for this belonging, we are not for these familial ties. We are simply and totally for Allah. And as things are being removed from us, it is actually us being purged and we are being returned to God. That is the journey that we need to undertake. To relieve ourselves of everything and go back to that untarnished state. And that is where God says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhan nafsul mutma'inna irji'i ila rabbiki. O contented soul, return to your Lord. So it seems that we are in some place. We have faltered in a big way. Now we are here. And now this is an opportunity to gain back our union with our beloved. If that is understood, then in that case, we cannot waste this life. Then it would make sense that, look, every breath that you breathe on this earth is going to be accountable. And it's going to be very, very heavy on that day. And the biggest tribulation upon the children of Adam will be this realization that I wasted my life in worrying about things, in crying about things that didn't matter. And there was something else going on altogether. And then we will remember at that point. And this iconic figure, Imam Hussain Salamullah alayhi, you can see him on the day of Ashura. As he progresses and as his tests become more compounded, the people who are writing his story are saying that we see greater sense of calmness prevail upon his soul. We see his face radiating. We see his soul surrendering. You heard this, that he had fallen from his steed. And they said, await not, behead the man. We circled him, they say. But the thought of killing him was removed from our minds when we looked at him. We saw him radiating. We saw his lips eulogizing, praising God. That is the state that this great soul calls us to by the removal of other than God from our souls. Rahmallah man qara al-Fatiha.